And there may be some tension going on. Because this is what will happen. When you start loving people who are unlovely, you'll begin to get a taste of the greatness of the love of God. When you begin to love those who have mistreated you, you'll begin to experience something inside of you. Your heart and your mind will open itself up to the incredible love of God, because that's how God loves you. We'll get to more of that at the end of the service, but when we do the hard stuff, when we radically love people, it will take a faith in Jesus. You may have a friend, you may have a family member whose marriage is being divided. You may have a friend who's in a relationship with their children, and it is just badness. There is just conflict. If you tell them, love your kids anyway, or kids, it starts with you as well. High school students, junior high students, this matters to you. Okay? Your love for your parents should not be dependent upon your parents' love for you. God's called you to a greater love. God's called you to love your parents anyways. Imagine, though, telling these parents to love their kids, or telling a spouse to love an unlovable spouse. They're going to say to you, there's no way I can love that person. There's no way I can love that coworker who just threw me underneath the bus. There's no way I can love a boss who just fired me. There's no way. And I say to you, you're right. You're right. And now you're beginning to taste the love of God. And now you're about to embark on a journey that is going to require faith in Jesus, that is going to take you deeper and further along in your walk with God. And at the end of it, you are going to be stronger in your walk with God. You're going to be stronger in your faith. Because what you know up here is going to begin to be lived out. And your experience with God is going to go so much deeper than what it ever was when you begin to love those unlovable people, and you begin to love your enemies, and you begin to do good to those people who hate you, and pray for those who mistreat you. You're going to begin to experience the incredible love of God in your life, and they are going to be seeing the incredible love of God in their lives. And that's what it may take for them to come to know Jesus. Jesus calls us to something deeper. He calls us to love beyond the norm. He calls us to love in a way that it is going to require a faith in Him. It will take sacrifice. It'll take effort. It will take a come and die. And what does Jesus call you to? Come and die. And it will require not only our action, but our attitudes. Are you loving beyond the norm? Are you sitting in verses 32 to 34 and, you're loving, but you're loving those who love you back? Are you willing to love beyond the norm? Are you willing to love people that's going to require a faith in a God who absolutely loves you? Let's look at verses 35 to 37. We'll see another aspect of this challenge. But love your enemies, Jesus says. Do good to them and lend to them without expecting to get anything back. That's crazy. I mean, how many of you are willing to lend your precious money to somebody and not expect to get anything back in return? How many of you are willing to do good to those who mistreat you? But we do get to the good stuff. This is the good stuff. Then your reward will be great. Whew, we get something back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be sons of the Most High, because He is kind to the ungrateful and wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. See, we see this. Wow, our reward will be great. So we think, oh, well, Ronnie, if I love people now and here, even those unlovely people, well, there's going to be a reward that's going to be in heaven. And man, I can't wait for that. And you have to trust me a little bit on this one. But Jesus right here is saying very clearly, yes, there will be reward, but that is not the motivation. That is not the motivation for loving the unlovely. That is not the motivation for loving those people who do not pass the grocery store test. The motivation, the reason why we love is for relationship. Love for relationship. Relationship with God. You see what it says there in verse 35? Then your reward will be great and you will be sons. Relationship of the Most High. Be merciful just as your Father is merciful. There's relationship. Those who don't pass the grocery store test, you may be asking in the back of your head, Ron, why in the world why would I love them? Why would I love those who mistreat me? It's for relationship with God. You will experience God in a deeper way, and He will walk alongside of you in the midst of this journey. And you will begin to experience God in a much greater way. Love for relationship. When it comes to this reward that it's talking about here, Jesus never urges us. He never urges us to serve for reward. But He does urge us to serve for relationship. And that's what's happening here. He's urging us to serve for the reward of the relationship with Him, with God Himself. There's a woman named Mother Teresa. I'm sure many of you have heard of her, know her story. And there was a little bit that I read about her. And her first compulsion to do what she did, Mother Teresa lived a life where she came alongside the poor and helped them. And why would Mother Teresa, why would she give her life to serving the unlovely, to serve the poor? And this is what happened. She was walking along a street one day, and she saw a woman who was dying. And she was in the gutter. She was homeless, and she was all alone. And there were rats that were beginning to eat her body. And she saw that. And this is what she says. She says, if there is a God in heaven and a Christ we love, nobody should die alone. Her compulsion was God. If there is a God, if there is a Christ that we love, then no one will die alone. And that needs to be our motivation for loving those who mistreat us. Everything else will fall short. We love those who mistreat us because God loves them. We love the unlovely because God loves them and because God loves us, and that's what God did for us. I want you to fill in your own blank. If there is a God in heaven and a Christ we love, what is God calling you to do? What is God calling you to do in the relationships that you're in right now, where there is conflict or dissension or just a bunch of junk going on? Look at Luke 6:36 again. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. We are to have mercy as God has mercy on us. Sometimes we forget about the mercy of God. But just imagine if God loved this world as the world loves. Imagine if God said, you know what? I will love people if they love me. I will do good to those people who do good to me. You know what? I will give. I will loan to people as long as they can pay me back. If that is the way that God would love us,